Increasing leverage on business activities has a twofold benefit. The first one being you get more return on your time. So let's say if you have a fixed income per unit time that you spend, like an hourly rate essentially, you can now only do the work or do less of the lower income work and more of the higher stuff, so that more of your time is charged at a higher rate. Net, you're earning more money. That's a good thing. The second fold effect, which probably isn't talked about as much, is that you actually get to spend more time on probably something that you are better at. And the reason I've got to talking about this today is I was having a bit of a rut last week. I just couldn't really, I didn't want to work. And the sales role that within our company has two main parts to it. It's appointment setting and sales calls. And the appointment setting, both of these by themselves are great. What I don't like is task switching. I'm much more of a project oriented executioner rather than an operator. I'd much rather be like, today's single focus is this, lock me away, I'll see you when I'm done. Rather than a little bit of this, little bit of that, check in over there, check in here. I find that very distracting and demotivating. Like, it takes me a long time to ramp up speed between stuff. Not always, but there's that mental lag. And I've definitely decreased the physical lag between the two. Like, I've ended a video call and I've been on another appointment setting call. I've ended a sales call and moved to an appointment setting call within 15 seconds because of the way that I've set up the work to be able to do it. But it's mentally fatiguing, and maybe this is just me being a pussy about it, but sometimes I just don't want to do it. So this week, Millie and I have switched up where she is setting my calendar for me, and she's also going to be help setting for our other SDR, commission only guy, who's doing pretty well. And what that has enabled me to do is over the last 2 days that we've been doing this, is I'm taking one extra call a night, so that increases my call volume by 25%, and I'm only doing the same amount of work, which is really nice. So actually the same amount of work on calls, but my total work time is actually down like 30% or something. And in the last 2 days, I've made 5 closes, which is pretty good. Over the last couple of weeks, I probably would have averaged 3 to 4. So that's a significant uplift if the LTV per person is, £500 to £1,000. That's a significant bump. Now, is that a sensible trade-off with the skill that Millie has? Probably not. But it makes the work more enjoyable. But the principle in itself is good, because if you are having to hand off work, and I can promise you this from experienced it so much this year myself, it's much easier to pass off one role than to pass off a role that contains 2 separate roles. So when we first started our SDR hiring out our sales team, we actually split the role into appointment setters and closers. The thought behind that was the skill we thought for setting was much lower and less experience was needed. It was literally calling people and being like, hey, you inquired for this thing, let me just check that we can help, kind of it. And then the SDRs require much more skill. And there's also a wage discrepancy, so we thought, well, let's get the guys who are well trained, who are more expensive, to do the higher leverage stuff, and the people who aren't to do the less leverage stuff. And it worked. It was decent. Throughout going on further, we found out that the appointment setting actually requires more skill than I initially gave it credit for. But they are distinctly 2 different skills. So when we later trialed combining the 2 into one role, the rate of learning was so much lower by the SDRs. And honestly, lots of people, I was really shocked. We hired 10 people for this, and only 1 or 2 out of the 10 actually managed to become within the realm of decent at both tasks. 1 or 2 out of the 10 came within about 50% of the stats that we could do, which is crazy to still be 2 times better. Whereas when we split it up into the two separate roles, we had much better skill in each individual one separately. So it's a great opportunity for you to learn how to scale stuff with a much decreased risk, and increases leverage on your time and hopefully your enjoyment too. And that was the number one reason that we've done it this week. But yeah, it's going all right. And for me personally, if you're having a tough time getting onto work, if you have a call scheduled with someone, especially something like a sales call where you have to turn up and play a role, it's much harder to not turn up to that. Whereas appointment setting for me, if I don't pick up the phone, it doesn't happen. And so I can procrastinate, find myself a bit busy. Whereas if I've got someone waiting on the other side for me, I don't really have much of a choice. So there's a little hack for you. And actually, I can go even further and explain how when we first started scaling the company, what I was doing was scheduling all of my calls for the evening. So from 4 until 9 p.m, I would have 8 to 10 calls booked in that time period. And I'd wake up and start work at like 8 a.m, work all the way through until 4 p.m. And then when I'm pretty cooked and done, that's when the work actually starts, and I can't back out then, so I put on my character and no one knows. So it's a great way to force yourself to do loads of extra work if you are struggling with work capacity. Put all of your calls at the end of the day where you don't have a choice but to turn up, even if you're flagging a little bit. And then with a snack or two, super easy to do. So there you go. All my thoughts for today and a little hack to increase your work capacity. Have a great one. Peace.